Lieutenant Mara Chen sat stiffly on the creaking wooden bench in the crowded courtroom. Her uniform pressed and spotless, though her heart pounded like a thunder drum in her chest. She had come to answer a minor charge of immigration fraud, nothing she could not handle but, as the bailiff called for the orphan's guardian. A small, trembling figure rose from the back row. The girl's wide, pale green eyes filled with both fear and hope as she whispered a single word that shattered everything. Mara thought she knew. Dad. A hush fell over the courtroom. Even the stern judge paused, pen raised in midair. Mara felt her breath catch in her throat. All at once, the world tilted sideways and every sharp edge of her past life blurred. She saw the girl's thin shoulders quiver, her ragged dress hanging on bones too small to bear the weight of a hidden empire. In that moment, Mara realized this child carried more than grief. She carried a legacy written in codes of blood and secrets, of shadowed corridors stretching across star systems. The orphan's soft voice trembled again. Please, Dad, I need you. And Mara, a by-the-book officer trained to follow orders and uphold the law, felt something fierce and tender bloom inside her chest. She stood slowly, every eye in the room fixed on her. Her voice, usually calm and authoritative, quavered as she asked, "What do you call me?" The child's answer echoed, "My father." A murmur rose among the onlookers' whispers of scandal and curiosity. Mara glanced at the judge, who lowered his gavel but made no move to intervene. The clerk slid a legal document across the desk, sealed with the emblem of the Orion Sector Court. It named Mara as the legal guardian and heir to everything Trin's family once ruled. Mara's mind spun with questions. Who were these people? Why had they chosen her? And how would she, a disciplined officer with no taste for crime or power, handle a title forged in tragedy? In that tense silence, she felt the weight of countless lives pressing on her shoulders. Frontier settlers who needed supplies, exiles who lived in hidden safe houses, and families like Trin S., who had vanished in a single night of betrayal. Tears pricked Mara's eyes as she knelt before the girl, offering her steady hands. She promised, her voice breaking but strong. The girl's shoulders relaxed for the first time, relief washing over her face like warm sunlight. Outside the courtroom, reporters pressed forward, cameras flashing in a blinding storm of questions and speculation. Mara led Trin past the noise, her uniform glinting under neon halopanels, as she shielded the child from prying eyes. In the quiet hallway, Trin reached up and grasped Mara's hand. Small fingers curled around the rigid cuff of her sleeve. Mara swallowed hard, feeling a fierce protectiveness surge through her. She tucked a stray lock of silver hair behind the girl's ear, and in that simple gesture, she accepted the new path laid before her. She would learn the secrets of a hidden empire, not to rule with fear or greed, but to reshape its power into something noble and true. And though her world would never be the same, Mara knew with unshakable certainty that in the lonely expanse of space, she had found a reason to fight for something greater than herself. Mara returned to her quarters aboard the Starship Odyssey, the sealed court documents heavy in her hands and heavier still in her thoughts. She paced the narrow corridor, each footstep echoing like a drumbeat of destiny. Trin stayed quietly. At her side, clutching a threadbare doll whose glass eyes reflected the ship's dim emergency lights. The orphan's fragile shoulders shivered as she tried to understand how someone she had never met could suddenly become her father and inherit everything her family had built, both the noble aid networks and the dark smuggling routes. In the privacy of the cabin, Mara spread the aged, embossed parchments on the metal table, the seals of the Orion Sector Court glinting under the harsh lights. She studied the legal writ, line by line, property deeds on hidden warehouses, charts marking clandestine jump gates, and bank accounts disguised as charitable foundations. Her disciplined mind raced to reconcile the words with her instincts. She was a decorated officer of the Galactic Peacekeepers, sworn to uphold law, an order not to traffic in secrets or lead a hidden empire. Yet here it was, proof that fate had chosen her for a role she had never sought. Trin's small voice cut through the whirl of thoughts. "Dad," she whispered, "what does it all mean?" Mara knelt beside her, placing a gentle hand on the girl's trembling arm. She remembered her own childhood, far from home, learning to count star systems instead of counting blessings. She had known loneliness in metal corridors, the ache of duty outweighing the warmth of family. Now she faced a second chance, a family thrust upon her by tragedy and law, with power she did not understand. She brushed a lock of neon blue hair from Trin's brow and offered a reassuring smile. "It means," she said softly, "that we will learn together." Over the next hours, Mara summoned her most trusted lieutenants to the briefing room, a tight circle of officers who believed in her unwavering integrity. She told them nothing of the criminal undertones, only that she had become legal guardian to an orphan whose family name carried weight in the shadow. Markets of the Outer Rim, she asked for discretion and loyalty. Their duty was to protect the girl and help her learn the truth. Her crew nodded, their respect for her unshaken by the strange twist of fate. Later, as the Odyssey dropped out of hyperspace near the orphan's homeworld, Illyria Delta, Mara, and Trin surveyed the shattered remains of a mansion half buried in dust and tangled vines. The building, once grand and ornate with spired towers and stained-glass windows, now lay in ruins, silent witnesses to betrayal and loss. Trin's lip quivered as she stepped onto the cracked marble floor, her small boots echoing across empty halls. Mara watched, her heart tight, and realized that rebuilding this place meant restoring hope to more than one broken soul. She guided Trin to a hidden panel behind a collapsed bookshelf. With trembling fingers, the girl pressed a worn symbol in. Intricate spiraling knot of her people's making, and the wall slid open to reveal a cavern lined with crates, stacked like sleeping giants. Each crate bore the family crest, two entwined falcons clutching a globe. Inside, Mara found sacks of medicine, barrels of clean water rations, and encrypted holodisks, containing coordinates to every secret safe house the orphan's family had maintained. She inhaled sharply. This was no mere criminal cache, but a lifeline for countless refugees fleeing plague and war. The lines between right and wrong blurred as she stood amid materials meant for black market profit, now poised to save lives. Trin's wide eyes shone with both fear and pride. "This was our family's work," she said quietly. Mara knelt to meet her gaze. "And now," she replied, "it will be our work." As the twin suns dipped below the horizon of Illyria Delta, and the sky turned shades of violet and gold, Mara made a promise to herself and to the orphan in her care. She would transform this empire of shadows into a beacon of light. In the hush of the ruined mansion, with dust motes dancing in the dying rays, she whispered, "We will write a new story, one of hope, of justice, and of family." And in that moment, as father and daughter stood together at the threshold of legend, Mara felt a fierce and tender determination take root in her chest, stronger than any fear she had ever known. Mara sat at the console in the Odyssey's dimly lit databay, the soft hum of processors echoing like distant stars. Trin stood beside her on a small stool, her pale green fingers hovering over a holokeyboard, the encrypted drives they recovered. On Illyria Delta glowed with faint blue light, each one a promise and a threat. Mara entered the first access code, a series of spiraling symbols Trin had painstakingly memorized. As the data bloomed across the screen, lists of routes, supply manifests, encoded messages, Trin's eyes widened with wonder and fear. Memories she had pushed deep into her mind stirred, a hurried farewell at a hidden landing pad. Voices whispering about the father who will come, and her mother's final lullaby. Mara watched the girl's chest rise and fall, her bright eyes reflecting the streams of data. She placed a steady hand on Trin's shoulder. "You're safe now," Mara whispered, though her own heart trembled at the weight of what they held. Together, they worked through each file. Mara's trained mind grasped the logistics. Storage depots disguised as orphanages, smuggling lanes repurposed for emergency refugees, covert hospitals where the sick could heal without fear of pirates or patrols. But woven between these noble uses lay darker threads, alliances with mercenary gangs, secret labs experimenting on alien pathogens, and a ledger of debts owed to powerful underworld lords. Trin shivered as she recognized her aunt's elegant script on one disc notes about trade-offs between mercy and survival. "They did these things to protect us," she said softly, voice quivering. Tears brimmed in Mara's eyes as she imagined the choices Trin's family had made under impossible pressure. She took the girl into her arms, holding her tight against the rush of cold data and colder truths. "We will honor their sacrifice," she promised, "and we will do better." Mara spent the next hours mapping safe routes. She marked gasps of relief on her star chart worlds that would receive food and medicine, and noted pockets of unrest. Where aid was needed most, Trin, her confidence growing, learned to navigate the console herself, selecting coordinates and scheduling drops. Mara smiled as the child's small hands tapped commands with growing surety. In those moments, they were not officer and court ward, but partners forging a new path. The bond between them deepened with every shared victory, a successful supply run, a grateful message from a refugee camp, the tender moment when Trin dared to dream aloud of rebuilding her family home as a sanctuary for all lost children. But as dawn approached on the ship's internal clock, an alarm flickered on the screen. An unauthorized access attempt on one of the encrypted seals. Ara's breath caught. She alerted her security officer, Lieutenant Core, who traced the intrusion to an unregistered vessel lurking near the ship's landing bay. Mara's chest tightened with dread. Could this be Victor Sol's operatives, hungry to reclaim what they believed was theirs? She ordered the Odyssey into alert posture and summoned her closest crew. Trin watched as soldiers armed themselves, her small face set with determination rather than fear. Mara knelt before her daughter and brushed a lock of neon blue hair from her face. "Stay close to me," she said. "No one will hurt you." In the hangar bay, Mara and her team discovered a sleek scout ship bearing the emblem of the Crimson. Talana, notorious mercenary guild that had once partnered with Trin's family. The guild's colors still stained the hull like a scar. Ara's jaw tightened as she realized the scale of what they faced. These were not desperate fugitives, but professionals skilled in betrayal and violence. She turned to her crew, voice steady. "They want our empire back. They want it for profit. We will not let fear win." Core nodded, guns raised. As the hangar doors slid open with a thunderous roar, Trin grasped Mara's hand, her grip fierce and unyielding. In that moment, father and daughter stood united against the shadows of the past. Mara placed a protective arm around the girl and stepped forward to face the Crimson Talon. Her voice rang out in the cavernous. "Bay, this legacy is ours to reshape. If you seek it for greed, you will answer to all the lives it once saved." Silence fell as eyes turned to her, then murmurs spread through the mercenaries. For the first time since the court, Mara felt the power of her new role, not to command fear, but to inspire hope. And as the scout ship's pilot emerged to challenge her claim, Mara squared her shoulders. Ready to defend the promise she had made to an orphan who had dared to call her dad? Mara stood on the Spartan deck of the Odyssey as crimson suns dipped below the horizon of Lyria Delta, her eyes fixed on the hollow map that glowed like distant hope. All around her, the crew moved with purpose, loading crates of medicine and food into sleek cargo pods that once carried illicit goods. Every time stamp ticked closer to dawn, and in that hush before departure, Mara felt the weight of responsibility settle in her chest like a living thing. Trin hovered at her side, small hands brushing the smooth metal of the console, her pale green skin lit by the soft hololight. The girl's eyes shone with new determination, and Mara remembered her promise to transform shadow into salvation. With a steady voice, Mara addressed her officers. These routes were once built for profiteers. Now they will serve the needy. No one spoke against her, for they saw in her conviction the same fierce loyalty that had bound them through every mission. As the Odyssey initiated its sleek jump to the first frontier world, Mara felt the engine's hum resonate with her own heartbeat, a symphony of purpose and courage. When they emerged from hyperspace, a battered colony huddled beneath toxic skies, its people gaunt with sickness and fear. Mara led Trin down the gangway, the girl clutching a datapad that displayed the colony's precise coordinates. Children peeked from behind makeshift shelters, their wide eyes reflecting both incredulity and faint hope as crates of medical supplies were unloaded. Mara knelt to offer water to a trembling elder, whose knotted fingers shook with gratitude. "This is for you," Mara said, her voice soft but unwavering, "so your people can live." Trin stood nearby, watching the exchange, and Mara saw tears shimmer in the girl's eyes, tears of redemption for a legacy once steeped in fear. Back aboard the ship, they received word from 3 more worlds, each frontier outpost stitched into the hidden network of Trin's family, now reborn as lifelines. Mara plotted new jumps with Trin's guidance, the girl's confidence growing with every successful drop. Yet even as gratitude poured in from the farthest reaches of human space, dark whispers echoed through the channels. The Crimson Talon had sent envoys demanding tribute, angry that their old contracts were broken. Soon, Mara's come panel buzzed with a single sealed message, a threat that if the Odyssey did not surrender the network, blood would flow where grain and medicine now fell. Mara felt her blood run cold, but she refused fear's command. She summoned her crew to the briefing room, a circle of determined faces lined with fatigue and hope. She showed them the hologram of the Talon's demand, and then turned to Trin. "Your family risked everything to protect the innocent. We will not yield now." The crew clustered around the girl as she raised her chin, voice steady despite her youth. "We fight for every life saved by these roots. If they come for us, they will meet more than ghosts of empire. They will meet our courage." A roar of agreement rose, and Mara's heart swelled with pride. Over the next cycle, the Odyssey flew shadow runs, dodging patrols and Talon scouts alike, delivering supplies under cover of nebula clouds. Each successful mission was a strike against fear itself, each grateful message a salvo in the war for hope. Mara watched Trin chart each route, her small form illuminated by the pulsing stars on the holomap. In those moments, father and daughter were architects of a new order, one built on mercy rather than menace. As they prepared to jump to their next destination, Mara laid a hand on Trin's shoulder. "We carry our past with us," she said, voice gentle, "but we choose our future." Trin nodded, eyes bright with unspoken dreams of a galaxy where every orphan had a home and every wound could heal. Mara activated the jump drive, and as the stars stretched into brilliance, she felt the Empire of Shadows transform into something luminous, a beacon in the vast night, bound by love, forged in courage, and guided by the promise of a better tomorrow. Mara woke before dawn, 2 urgent red alerts flashing across the Odyssey's bridge. A routine medical convoy, scheduled to deliver vaccines to the Karashi outpost, had exploded en route, crates of precious serum reduced to smoking wreckage. Her throat tightened as she studied the sat beam footage. A disguised cargo freighter, bearing the Crimson Talon's emblem, had intercepted the convoy and planted charges before vanishing into the void. Trin stood beside her, small shoulders drawn up against fear. "They're trying to scare us," the girl whispered, voice trembling. Mara drew a steady breath, placing a reassuring hand on Trin's arm. "We won't let them win." Mara convened her core team in the lower deck briefing room. Lieutenant Core laid out the evidence, distorted logs pointing to forged orders in Mara's name, falsified coordinates leading the convoy into an ambush zone, and a digital signature matching Victor Saul's known cyber operations cell. The room was heavy with tension as Mara listened, her jaw set with determination. "He's framing us," she said quietly. "He knows our network brings hope. He wants to break our spirit." Trin watched the adults with wide eyes. Mara knelt before her and whispered, "We will fix this, and we will protect every life depending on us." The girl nodded, wiping her tears with a small green sleeve. Late that night, Mara and her security team gathered in the ship's data bay. The air was cool with humming servers, and holographic schematics glowed in pale blue around them. Mara inserted a stolen Ember Kia device from her former police days into the main console. Lines of code scrolled at lightning speed as she and Core traced the sabotage back to a hidden node on the freighter's encrypted grid. "This node relays Saul's commands," Core explained. "If we shut it down, we can recover the data and prove our innocence." Mara nodded, fingers dancing over the holo keyboard. Her heart pounded with nerves and hope as she bypassed firewalls and rerouted power. Trin, tiny but brave, watched every move, learning the steps of justice. Minutes later, evidence files bloomed on the central holoscreen. Forged orders bearing Mara's command signature, timestamps showing the fraud occurred hours before the explosion, and a secret video revealing Saul's lieutenant planting timed charges aboard the convoy ship. Mara felt both relief and fury. She stored the files in a secure ledger and crafted a public transmission, a direct broadcast to every settlement in the Orion corridor. In measured tones, Mara described the convoy's purpose, the sabotage attempt, and the newly uncovered evidence. Implicating Victor Saul, she addressed the people of the frontier. "Let no one confuse fear with justice. We stand for truth, and we will not be silenced by those who traffic in violence." With the transmission live, responses poured in messages of solidarity, offers of support, and relief that the true culprit had been exposed. Trin watched. Tears filled the viewports of grateful colonists as they celebrated Mara's courage. Mara held the girl close and whispered, "Your family believed in protecting the innocent. Today, we honored that promise." The girl smiled through tears, her small hand clutching Mara's uniform. As they prepared to resume supply runs, Mara called her crew to the bridge. The holomap pulsed with new convoy routes, now guarded by Allied patrol ships, alerted by the broadcast. Mara activated the jump drive, and the Odyssey leapt into hyperspace with renewed purpose. Side by side, Mara and Trin stood on the observation deck, stars streaking into lines of light before them. Mara's voice was soft but firm. "We will face fear with hope and hate with compassion." Trin nodded, eyes shining brighter than any star. In that moment, father and daughter were more than heirs or officers. They were beacons of humanity's best, ready to carry their rebuilt empire of mercy into the darkest reaches of space. Mara summoned leaders from every frontier world to a secure holosummit, the flickering blue chamber filled with dignitaries, aid coordinators, and once feared underworld figures who now served as farmers, medics, and traders. Trin stood proudly. Beside her, clutching the family crest on a small polished stone, her neon blue hair glowing softly in the ambient light. As the holographic map of supply routes rotated above them, Mara spoke with calm authority. "We inherited these channels through tragedy and loss, but today we choose to wield them for life, not fear." Hush settled as former mercenaries' men and women who once trafficked weapons nodded in agreement, their eyes reflecting both guilt and hope. One by one, community leaders spoke. A refugee camp elder praised the delivery of clean water. A colony governor recounted how vaccines stopped a deadly plague, and even a reformed smuggler confessed that late-night runs now brought food to starving children instead of contraband. When Victor Saul's name was raised, voices hardened, recalling his sabotage and lies. Then Trin, small but fearless, stepped onto the virtual dais. Her young voice rang clear. "My family's power once protected only those who could pay. Now, our empire of mercy must protect every soul, no matter how small or lost." Her words echoed like a promise, stirring tears in the eyes of hardened veterans and idealists alike. Mara felt her chest swell with pride as the assembled voted unanimously to ban any tribute to Saul's network and to integrate all surviving Crimson Talon members into the aid corps under strict oversight. The final vote illuminated a new emblem. On the holomap, two entwined falcons, no longer clutching a globe of profit, but surrounding a heart of light. Cheers erupted, echoing through the chamber and across channels to worlds that had never dared hope for unity. In that moment, father and daughter stood at the heart of a reborn community, guardians of a network once forged in shadows, now a shining beacon of cooperation. As the summit closed, Mara placed a gentle hand on Trin's shoulder. You changed this galaxy, she said softly. The girl smiled, eyes bright with dreams of new orphanages, schools, and free clinics springing up across star systems. Mara knew the real work was only beginning, but she also knew they would face every challenge together. Outside the summit, the Odyssey's crew prepared their next mission, to spread this new model of unity to worlds still untouched by hope. And as the twin suns of Lyria Delta rose in unison, casting amber light across the ship's hull, Mara and Trin shared a quiet moment of triumph, father and daughter, architects of a just empire, ready to carry humanity's best into the darkest reaches of space. As the final reports came in from the farthest reaches of settled space, Mara Chen stood at the Odyssey's observation window, her silhouette framed by the vast stretch of starlight, and Trin pressed close beside her, her small hand wrapped in Mara's strong fingers. Together, they watched messages of thanks flood the Channel's colonies. Once cut off by war, now celebrated supply drops of food and medicine. Orphan refuges opened on desert worlds under Trina's own guidance, and former smugglers turned. Volunteer pilots eager to serve the network that had given them new purpose. Mara felt her chest swell with quiet pride as she recalled the lonely officer who first heard the word Dad echo in a courtroom. Promise that spanned star systems. Trin, her pale green eyes shining with emotion, pointed to a holomap showing the next wave of missions, a remote mining colony plagued by dust storms that needed power cells, water vineyard on an ocean moon desperate for desalination filters, and a dying reef world where bioengineered sponges would heal the seas. Mara smiled and ruffled the girl's neon blue hair, remembering how frightened she once was when the secrets of her family first spilled into view. Now Trin moved with calm confidence as she plotted coordinates on the holomap, each star mark a beacon of hope rather than a hidden smuggling route. Mara placed a reassuring hand on the girl's shoulder. You have shown me how to turn shadow into light, she said softly. And Trin turned to her with a radiant grin, the bond between them stronger than any code or contract. As the Odyssey's engines hummed to life for their next jump, Mara thought of the people they had saved together, elders who could smile again, children who would grow up knowing they belonged, and communities that once whispered fear now spoke of unity. In the quiet hum of the ship, father and daughter stood side by side, ready to carry their legacy onward. The empire that Trin's family built in secret for survival had been reforged into an empire of mercy under Mara's steady hand. Their journey would never truly end. There would always be worlds in need, new challenges to face, and fresh stories of kindness to write among the stars. Yet in that moment, as the stars stretched into lines of light and the Odyssey slipped into hyperspace, Mara knew they had already changed the galaxy. They had shown that even the darkest inheritance could become a beacon of hope when guided by compassion and love. And with Trin's small hand in hers, Mara felt certain that together they would keep forging a future where every orphan found a home. Every wound could heal, and every dad spoken in fear could one day echo in joy.